Tonight on the Black Channel, 2024 is now right around the corner, and even the corporate media is admitting the Democrats are in complete disarray. The Black Channel is live. Unapologetic, unadulterated, and absolutely uncompromising. Greetings, brothers and sisters from around the world, and welcome back to the home, the haven, the stronghold, and the everlasting superfortress of intelligent black thought. We are the Black Media, and this is the Black Channel, and I am your host, your brother, your humble servant, the voice of Black America, the Black Authority, broadcasting to you live from the only historically black college and university of higher education and learning in the entire cosmos. You are, of course, welcome to join us. And join us you shall, because on tonight's program here, we got a lot to cover here tonight, folks, a lot to cover, but just a very brief reminder to you here. Administrations come and administrations go, but the interests of black people are eternal. And to be able to properly measure that, you've got to have a long memory, and you've got to watch these things from beginning to end. You can't have a knee-jerk reaction to things. So when you see someone like Joe Biden go into office, you can't sit up here and have a knee-jerk reaction. You've got to have a holistic, comprehensive one. That allows you to properly predict which way things are going to be going. And you'll all remember that I said from the very beginning that Kamala Harris was a dead brand, that there was nothing you could do about it. And if you remember, when Joe Biden got elected, only one microphone anywhere on the planet made it very clear that Kamala Harris's purpose was to be his official White House hostage, his crash dummy, and his chosen sacrificial lamb. That he was bringing her in close so that she was going to be soaking up all the bad news, all the bad impression. Most of the bad feelings would fall on her to the point that she would no longer want to show herself in public. And that is exactly what has occurred. Exactly what I told you from the very beginning. I said that from day one. November 2020 of the election, I said it then. I let everybody know that's what it's going to be. And sure enough, you've seen it break down. The so-called border czar and the U.S. border is an absolute catastrophe. She shows up at black funerals of black folk killed by police, and she barely wants to mutter a word. It's over for her. She can't even get a deal with Netflix. And what I said years ago, now, even the white corporate media is conceding to everything that I said years ago. Brief reminder again, you'll all remember that I told everyone last year, when everyone was panicking about Biden and COVID mandates, and oh, Jason, it's going to get worse, and they're going to chip everybody and making get vaccines. No, they're not. You're going to watch all that talk. They're going to declare the pandemic over in 2022. Mark my words. And sure enough, 2022 came, and they started declaring the pandemic over. And everybody said, well, Jason, how did you know? I said, midterm elections. Mark my words. Halfway through 2022, Biden will declare the pandemic over. And that's exactly what occurred. Well, now we move on to Kamala Harris, because now 2024 is coming into view, and Biden needs to have a flunky and a flack so that he can blame them for his misgivings and his mistakes. And as you can see, they've chosen Kamala Harris. Democratic leaders want the party to stop its Kamala Harris pile-on ahead of 2024. I wonder who the leaders are. Will they come out and say who they are? I wonder. It's coming from CNN from Jasmine Wright and Edward Isaac Dovier. Elizabeth Warren has called twice to apologize. Over a month later, Kamala Harris hasn't called back. This is from CNN Story now. In a local Boston radio interview in late January, Warren was enthusiastic about President Joe Biden running for re-election, but asked if Biden should keep Harris as his running mate, she said, quote, "I really want to defer to what makes Biden comfortable on his team." The incident and its aftermath, different details of which were described to CNN by multiple people close to the Massachusetts senator and people close to the vice president, has fed an ongoing breakdown of accusations and purported misunderstandings. Quote, "Pretty insulting," is how one person close to Harris described the feelings of many in the vice president's office and in her wider orbit. Several people close to Warren said the senator was calling to explain her statement as purely a mistake, a fumbling, unintentional attempt to avoid stepping on a campaign announcement from the president. A spokesperson for Warren pointed to the statement the senator issued hours after the original interview, clarifying what she said. And an additional person close to Warren cited a personal and political relationship that goes back to being the first senator to endorse Harris for Senate, and said of her support, quote, "She didn't mean to imply otherwise." Warren made her case to Harris's chief of staff, Lorraine Voles, who returned the senator's call in place of Harris, a source familiar with the callback told CNN. So the women are up there catfighting on Capitol Hill. So glad we're getting a lot done here. They're catfighting on Capitol Hill. So, all right. But the Warren moment is infuriating many in Harris's circle. To them, it's the latest in a long string of snubs to a vice president whom they say has never gotten the respect or support she deserves. Warren's words sting even more, they say, because they came from a former rival who in 2020 hoped to be picked up as Biden's running mate instead. Oh, shucky ducky. Harris diehards aren't the only ones who say they've had enough. Embedded in many top Democrats' thinking as Biden appears headed toward a re-election campaign announcement, according to CNN's conversations with 36 leading Democrats, is fear that years of Harris negativity could now prove a political problem. Any running mate is a heartbeat away from the presidency, they say, but that's a different proposition when the heart in question has been beating for more than 80 years. Multiple Democratic leaders contend that if people don't start feeling more positive about the next person in the line of succession, they might turn away from the ticket entirely. They're urging allies to stop the Harris pile-on, if only for Biden's sake, or for Democrats' sake, or the party's future. Quote, "People who are denigrating her are aggrandizing themselves," said Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker, who has looked at a post-Biden White House run himself, speaking generally of Harris's critics. Quote, "Right now, she seems to be an albatross," fretted one state Democratic Party chair who is concerned about Harris's poll numbers and about Biden's re-election chances. Quote, "She's either going to be a liability or a help, and you better embrace her because it's not like she's going to be off the ticket. It's gone from the negative, we can't have her be weak, to the positive, she must be a force, and she's demonstrated that she can be," said one top party operative. The party chair and the party operative requested anonymity to discuss internal deliberations. Harris declined an interview request, but has repeatedly dismissed attacks on her as, quote, "political chatter." In interviews, while saying she's looking forward to another campaign and continuing to build out a partnership with Biden that has started to find its complementary rhythms. Quote, "There is still so much work to be done," Harris said at a fundraiser in Miami Beach. "And we've accomplished a lot, but we still have more to do." Harris's press secretary Kirsten Allen declined to comment on the Warren call with CNN, instead issuing a statement about what the vice president thinks is important in her job. Whether advancing the priorities of the Biden-Harris administration, defending Americans, blah, 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 blah. Biden advisors say he is committed to making sure Harris is a key player, just as he was as President Obama's vice president. Jen O'Malley Dillon, White House Deputy Chief of Staff, said Harris's work within the administration and on the midterm campaign trail is a critical part of the White House strategy. Quote, there is nobody, just like there was nobody, who was more prepared to make a decision about who his vice president should be, who understands how critical it is to have a strong partnership and a strong VP out there helping lead the ticket across this country, O'Malley Dillon said. Feeling trapped in a caricature. While Warren may not have meant to express doubts, the Zoom call organized by a one-time Biden Senate speechwriter and attended by Hollywood donors, executives, and actors, including Helen Hunt, Ron Livingston, and Beverly Hills 90210 star Gabrielle Carteris, was full of them. Harris is a huge liability, they complained to former California Senator Barbara Boxer, according to two people on the call. Barbara Boxer, really? She would hurt Biden's chances because people will focus on her, given his age. How, one asked Boxer, do they get Biden to replace her? Boxer, whom Harris succeeded in the Senate in 2016, gave a muted response. Quote, if that's how you feel, you should let Biden know, Boxer told them, according to people on the call. Asked about the comments, Boxer told CNN, I said it was the president's choice. That's strange. That's not quite what it seemed like you said there. Not quite what it seemed like you said, but all right. Harris's allies say she's trapped in a word salad caricature. Part Dan Quayle, oh goodness, and part Liz Truss, which was set during her first year on the job and has been propelled by Republicans and a political press corps eager to tear her down. They argued to CNN she can only do so much to change public perception of her when the job is fundamentally about being in the background. That's strange. Dick Cheney didn't have that problem. Joe Biden, as Obama's vice president, didn't have that problem. Very interesting. Al Gore didn't have that problem. All of a sudden, Kamala Harris plucked out of California to get the ski-wee vote. Next thing you know, she's not a lame duck, she's a dead duck. They go on to say in the article here, they also point out that it was right around this time in 2011 that Democrats began to speculate about Barack Obama replacing Biden on his own re-election ticket. Overstated. If, quote, if she shines too much, then she's overshadowing the president, Reverend Al Sharpton told CNN. If she doesn't overshadow or shine too much, she can't rise to the occasion. Sharpton said he's called the vice president a few times since she took office to vent about coverage he thinks has been unfair, only to find her talking him down. Harris aides point to mid-February as an example of how involved she is. She was the one charged with announcing at the Munich Security Conference that the U.S. government determined that Russia committed crimes against humanity in Ukraine. Symbolic. We'll get to these symbolic things in a moment. And in the following days promoted a new homeowner savings measure at an HBCU and then hosted reproductive rights leaders at the White House. Yeah, because that's really going to move the needle for you. Trips like those on her January speech on the anniversary of Roe v. Wade in Tallahassee, the capital city for likely Republican presidential candidate Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, not only boost Biden, but present, quote, the best counter to this false narrative that everyone wants to write up, said her former aide and current top Biden staffer, Julie Rodriguez. Harris defenders say this isn't about reassuring Americans they'd be in good hands, reflecting the Biden-Harris ticket, even if tragedy struck, but serve the larger project of getting Americans used to something unfamiliar. A black woman in a position of political power. Don't you mean an Asian woman in a position of political... They're not calling her the Asian woman now. This is from CNN's article. So they're saying the problem is getting them used to a black woman in the position of power. What happened to the Asian? CNN? What happened to being Asian? CNN? Just curious now, CNN, when they mention it being a problem or a negative, they don't bring, all of a sudden she ain't Asian anymore. Yeah, isn't that very convenient? She's not called Asian anymore. They're going to say here, what we have in Vice President Harris is a competent, capable, intelligent, authentic leader of color, said LaFonza Butler, a former senior aide who is now the president of Emily's List. You all can go look up Emily's List. Quote, people have to get comfortable seeing women and women of color in places of leadership, period. Supporting without supplanting Biden in the campaign. To Biden advisors, the images of the president walking the streets of Kyiv in his aviators, on top of a report from his doctor after his latest physical, which referred to him as vigorous, answer any of the questions of whether he's up to running a normal campaign. Suggestions that Harris will have a more active role on the trail or in any way pick up slack from a lightened Biden schedule are immediately shot down by the West Wing and the vice president's office, who coordinate to insist that point is moot because there won't be any slack to pick up. Not that they expect much stumping for at least a year, even if Biden makes a formal re-election announcement in the coming months with a focus on promoting his legislative agenda more than official political events. Same for Harris. Quote, she can do a lot of outreach and a lot of effective communication on behalf of this administration without having to be in candidate mode. Boy, that sure does sound familiar there, doesn't it? That sounds familiar. Kind of like Keisha Bottom B. Remember when Keisha Lance Bottom B? Yeah, when the Democrats told her, yeah, you ain't running for re-election of mayor in Atlanta, we'll give you a community outreach director job at the White House. So if you're a black female, you're pretty much good for covering up white supremacist police policies or getting a symbolic cabinet position, but no actual real power. Contrary to what Miss Jafonza of Emily's List had to say, you don't actually get any real power. But that's the point. If you all agree with what I'm saying here tonight, give me the thumbs up emoji in the chat room and hit the likes button. It's almost 4,000 people in here right now. I must have a lot of Ski Wee supporters sitting listening here tonight, but for the rest of you who are not Ski Wee supporters, give me a thumbs up in the chat room and hit the likes button. It's almost 4,000 people watching. They said many Democrats say Biden should do more to uplift Harris. Fat chance. The person he anointed as the future of the party. You really believe that mess? Even if they don't know exactly how. What? How are you supposed to do something you don't know what to do? Quote, I think it's up to the president to answer that question, not me, said Washington Governor Jay Inslee, who briefly ran in the 2020 primary race against Biden and Harris. So everywhere you turn, the political elite and leaders in Washington or leaders in the Democratic Party, everywhere you turn, none of them are supporting Harris. Everywhere you turn. Now they're getting behind Biden, but they're not supporting Harris. What's that intended to do? That's intended to make sure that when Biden leaves office, they're already setting the narrative that they have to choose somebody else to succeed Biden and to run in 2028. You gotta get somebody else. Several strategists preparing for a re-election campaign say that if all Harris did, now listen to this paragraph. Several strategists preparing for a re-election campaign say that if all Harris did was help drive up black voter turnout by championing issues that matter to those voters and light up women, including suburban women, on anger over Republicans' abortion restrictions, that in itself might be enough to win Biden a second term. Man, did you hear this deep, fat, fried bull crap here? If all Harris does is help drive up the black vote turnout by championing issues that matter to those voters, but they don't say what the issues are. Notice they didn't say what the issues are. So in other words, hey, I'm black this week. Vote for Biden because you're kind of indirectly voting for me. Ski-wee. Chuck Taylors, collard greens, Snoop Dogg, weed. They go on to say that was a big part of why Washington Senator Patty Murray said she asked Harris to come campaign in her surprisingly intense re-election race last year. Quote, she was just a dynamo. She was powerful. She was moving. She spoke about what's at stake, Murray said, calling the appearance, quote, a great turning point for all of us. Murray acknowledged that it isn't the sense many have of Harris, but argued that if more Americans see the vice president talking about women's rights and civil rights the way she did, they might change their views. But forcing voters to give her a second look, Murray said, is part of what can come out of a re-election campaign. Quote, she's an invaluable asset, said New Jersey Senator Cory Booker, one of the Democratic senators who embraced Harris since she first arrived in Washington. In some of the tough battleground states, she's going to be pretty damn powerful, frankly, he said. A disorienting time warp despite internal changes. Harris has shaken up some of her operations, bringing on a new chief of staff, a deputy chief of staff, and press secretary, all known to and favored by the West Wing. Cedric Richmond, the former congressman and Biden White House advisor, met with Harris several times himself over the last year. His advice, he recalled, started with the psychological, quote, ignore the haters, ignore the noise, do what you've been called to do. Excuse me, Mr. Richmond, brief question here. What if one of the haters is the president that she's serving under? Do you still ignore him too? Hey, what if one of the haters are other senators in the government? Do you still ignore those? Hey, what if it's a few Democrat governors? Do you still ignore them too? Is that just noise? You just ignore that and that's just noise? Just out of curiosity, do you still do that? And he's supposed to be an advisor? No wonder she's tanking. This guy here is an advisor to these folks, and the best he can do is ignore the haters. He's just there to collect his check because he knows he isn't going any further. He knows he's peaked in his political career, so he's done. Ignore the haters. Dude, this isn't an amateur act trying to get a record deal on VH1. Ignore the haters. Negro, please. They're going to say, but it also was practical, matching what others have told her. No wonder she's in trouble. She needed to get out more, both for the sake of people seeing her and for getting more comfortable in public. Now listen to this next paragraph. Pointing to Harris's work on issues like HBCU funding, police reform, and expanding access to health care, Booker said, quote, I can't think of a time that I've seen somebody have earned her chops, but not getting the credit where credit is due, capturing a pervasive feeling among the vice president's defenders. So you know what that means. What that means is that despite this symbolic this symbolic costume of addressing black people, and with all the lift all boats and disproportionately affected, it's the black vote she's not getting. She's not getting black support. That's what he's saying. She's not getting black support. You damn right she's not. They're not saying this, but listen to what they keep saying. She's addressing so-called black issues, but she isn't, quote, getting credit for it. Yeah, it's not white folk that you're expecting to give her credit for that. White people aren't expected to give her credit for that. Black folk are expected to give her credit for that, and black folk are not giving her credit for anything. She's afraid to show herself in public because she doesn't want to have to address the fact that, by the way, aren't you the Asian sister girl, Senator? Aren't you the Asian sister girl vice president? Aren't you the Asian sister girl candidate? So what I told you years ago is coming true. Exactly the way we called it here. The white corporate media is coming up years later. Finally conceding. Remember, before the midterm elections in 2022, that's what they were saying then. Remember, they were finally coming around to saying what we were saying about the Democrats' weakness with the black vote. Now they're coming up and saying about Kamala Harris in order to prevent having to ultimately say it about Joe Biden. That's what they're trying to avoid. They're trying to concede that, by the way, Joe Biden's black support has been evaporating too. But don't worry, Democrats think they have an answer for that. We'll get to that shortly. It goes on to say some adjustments were made, others were not, in part because of Harris's own resistance. Her second communications director in 2 years, meanwhile, departed the office around New Year's for family reasons. A search for a replacement or possible restructuring to give Harris what several involved feel is a much-needed role of senior counselor has remained underway for months. In her midterm travel and over the holidays, Harris began reconnecting with old donors, advisors, and friends. People close to Harris told CNN. Freed from most pandemic concerns, she hosted a string of holiday receptions at the Naval Observatory, including a big bash in December that a wider world of supporters flew into Washington for. She reached out to members of the media she didn't know. She didn't reach out to Roland. She didn't reach out to us. Wonder how Bowling Ball Martin's going to take that. They go on to say, but that was followed by more questions about whether she is up for the job, including in a new round of negative news stories that Harris loyalists felt contained backstabbing from supposed friends. Quote, folks are going to take shots because folks would hope to see themselves where she stands, said one Harris aide. The trap is to get distracted by that. But the frustration that the vice president is currently being judged by different standards is hard to get past. Quote, who the F knew what Mike Pence was doing? One senior Harris aide told CNN in exasperation. Simone Sanders? Oh, she ain't there no more? Okay. Now, of course, I'm editing what they said, but yeah, one of her senior aides told CNN who the F knew what Mike Pence was doing. So instead of focusing on her, they're focusing on the previous vice president. Well, nobody knew what he was doing. Why you got to be looking all up her nose? Why you got to be doing that? Y'all wasn't asking all that about Mike Pence. No, because Donald Trump was out front all the time. Yeah, I know what y'all are thinking. See, that's what you get right there. They do those kind of quotes when you got some black person working in their cabinet. The black person's supposed to sit up here and be talking, like an old Eddie Murphy Dolomite movie. That they're talking like it's an old blaxploitation movie. So that's the point of that right there. But all it really says is the wheels are coming off the wagon. That's all it really says. Momentum as mantra. Harris's team has embraced Biden's move toward running again, grateful for the spotlight to be off her for a few more years. and getting a break from every move she makes potentially being interpreted as subterfuge to nudge him off the stage. What has she possibly done that's tried to nudge him off the stage? She's basically been a pinata getting beaten black and blue. So CNN is at it again. Quote, momentum is the theme of her new stump speech for a re-election, a campaign, which she road tested in a well-received speech at the DNC in February. It's meant as a catchphrase for Democrats and as a mantra for her, especially as her team continues to plan a schedule which will have her traveling at least one day each week. Harris fought to attend Tyree Nichols' funeral in February after winter storm weather canceled flights across the country. To Sharpton, the impromptu speech he invited her to give proved criticisms against her unfounded. Quote, Americans saw for what it was, Sharpton said. She was speaking from the heart. Now, you all know I played her remarks here. Last month. It wasn't cringeworthy. It was downright humiliating. She sat there and literally the only thing she said was, our kids don't feel safe, and we hope that our kids would feel safe, but the police officers who beat Tyree Nichols to death, they didn't keep him safe. So we need to focus on being safe, and we don't feel safe. She never brought up black. She never said anything. Just the police don't make us feel safe. That was the most horrendously embarrassing speech. You can look it up on YouTube if you want to, or go back to my program talking about it. It was horrible. So you can't put a spin on that. You can't put a spin on that one. There's just no way to spin that. They're going to say here that still, despite any momentum they might feel, the issue of Biden's age continues to creep in every conversation about Harris's role. Quote, she'll never be a normal VP. South Carolina Representative Jim Clyburn, old Jimbo Jangles, the assistant Democratic leader in the House and a key booster of both Biden and Harris, told CNN, quote, my goodness, y'all know Jimbo Jangles, my goodness, she's the first African-American VP. She's the first Asian-American VP. Y'all, do you hear this nigga? Do you hear this nigga? Jimbo Jangles said, quote, my goodness, she's the first African-American VP. She's the first Asian-American VP. This is the first female VP having to be normal. How can it be normal? It's never going to be normal. Nigga, please. Do you all hear this? And then you wonder why it is that Washington tries to tell you that you can be a man and a woman simultaneously. Do you hear him? She's the first African American and the first Asian American. What the hip hop hell? To Murray, it remains more basic than that. Quote, everyone who says you can't do something, she said, is afraid that you will. The only thing they're afraid of with Harris is that she won't stick around longer to be ridiculed. So, folks, this is about shielding Biden. This is about covering for him. This is about making the world safe for him. That's what this is about. This is about finding a proper crash dummy so you can deflect attention. This is about that. This is about having somebody you can deflect and distract for. And if you can do that, then hopefully you take attention off of his inadequacies, and they are many. But as much as I like to tell you that that was all they were doing there, oh man, oh hell no. The symbolism goes into overdrive right now. You'll all remember here a couple of weeks ago, I showed you that Joe Biden put up a tweet talking about the earned income tax credit has lifted all these black children out of poverty. That ain't reparations. And that's not doing anything for black folk. But boy, he's trying it. They're just swiping at everything. Everything's symbolic. And speaking of symbolism, just in case you thought the symbolism was over, far as Kamala Harris, oh, hell no. It's full court press. It's a full court press of symbolism now. This was over there on CNN earlier today. And as you can see, all they're offering you is symbolism for a few hand-picked LGBT and LGBT adjacent Negroes who are just looking for a job somewhere. And their purpose is to get in front of the cameras and tell all the black folks in the field and all the black folks in the soil that, well, you see, Joe Biden gave me a job, so that means he's doing things for black people because he gave me a job. And what are you doing for black folk? I sit up here and I talk sassy. And that is doing something for black people. So I'm going to play this clip for you so you can hear this for yourselves. It already comes preloaded for cringe.
I want to highlight a quick moment before you go that happened at the White House briefing last week. You were there, and it wasn't just you. Cecilia Rouse was also there. Karine Jean-Pierre standing there in the middle, obviously, at the podium. And she highlighted what that moment meant for each of you in these important roles.
Now, you notice they don't talk to Asians like this. They don't talk to Asians about symbolic gestures. That's how you know Harris is not your first Asian anything. They don't talk to Asians about symbolic gestures. They talk to Asians about tangibles. They talk to Asians about legislation. They talk to Asians about funding. They talk to Asians about concrete benefits. They don't talk to Asians about, hey, we got 3 Asians in a room together. Ain't that progress? Ain't that goods? They don't talk to anybody else like that. Arabs, Latinos, they don't talk to them about, hey, we got 3 Mexicans in a room together. Ain't that progress? They don't talk to them like that.
Obviously, at the podium, and she highlighted what that moment meant for each of you in these important roles. How did it feel for you being there in the briefing room?
Well, what she didn't say is the 3 of us, because I consider both of them friends, all have daughters. So I look at what this means for the next generation, that they will not be first if they want to pursue these jobs or any other. And that's the goal, right? To make
Folks, did I call it or did I call it? Did you hear what she just said? Because this is all it's about, which is why they picked these cotton picking Negroes.
first if they want to pursue these jobs or any other. And that's the next generation, that they will not be first if they want to pursue these jobs or any other. And
So these are the Negroes they pick, not Negroes interested in power, not black folk interested in power. They grab black folk looking for a job, not looking to have controls of the levers of power, just some black folk looking for a job, which means you come in the door looking to serve. Asians, they don't talk to Asians about getting a job. They don't talk to Asians about getting a job, but they sit up here and tell black folk, understand what she's saying, that your purpose is to pursue a job, that the next generation will be able to get whatever job they want. We're out here talking about getting your hands directly on resources, empowerment, building an economy, forwarding ourselves as an international economic foundation, and Biden and CNN are saying, no. You don't want that. That's not what you want. What you want is symbolic achievements. So if you will instead focus on getting a job with us, as opposed to being in charge of something, see, we'll put you on the news. What? We'll have you at the White House podium. Well, this is what we'll do for you. You can be here and be seen and be symbolic, but you have no actual power. You have no actual power, just a bunch of symbolic accolades and a bunch of symbolic titles, but you have no actual power, which means that you're a completely safe Negro to have around. Because you're symbolic, you're window dressing, you're an accessory. You serve at the president's leisure, but you control nothing. And they literally brought this woman on here to tell you that your aspiration in life, that she feels that her legacy is convincing you that you can apply for and actually get approved for most jobs that you want to have. So that tells you why she's there.
Us, because I consider both of them friends, all have daughters. So I look at what this means for the next generation, that they will not be first if they want to pursue these jobs or any other. And that's the goal, right? To make sure we leave this country in a better place than we found it, make sure that all of our children, no matter where they're from, including a small town in Louisiana, can reach whatever their dreams are, and frankly, beyond our dreams. I didn't
Okay, well, I'm from a mid-sized city in Louisiana, and we ain't claiming this heifer.
know this existed. So representation matters, but more, I think, as
the representative from a mid-sized city in Louisiana, Miss Small Town, Louisiana, representation don't mean a damn thing. Empowerment means everything. Power, wealth, and influence. Damn representation. I would rather be invisible and all-powerful than completely visible everywhere and powerless, which is what you are. Take a look at the difference between the way she characterizes this and the way I characterize it. I would rather be invisible and all-powerful than to have no power and be completely visible by everybody everywhere. Ooh, everybody knows who you are, yeah, and you are completely powerless. So this tells you, if you want to know why black folk got messed up in the music industry and still get messed up today, because there's still a large number of Negroes that these institutions and organizations know that they can hand pick. They can hand pick these individuals. Now, they'll overlook better qualified people. They do that all the time. They overlook better qualified people all the time who are not going to come and say what she said. So she didn't get her job because she's qualified. She got her job because she's willing to humiliate herself by bowing and scraping and carrying the company line. That's what she got hired for. That's what it's about. And look at her. She's just shameless. You know why? Can I just say it like it is, Shalonda Young? This is the best job you ever had in your life. This is it. This is the pinnacle. This is all. It is all downhill from here. So she is sitting up here dancing around like a plantation jubilee. She is ecstatic. Wow, this is great and wonderful. I got to stand at the White House. She thinks she's going to parlay that into something else. She thinks she's going to parlay that into something else. It don't work that way. It doesn't work that way. All she's really doing is covering for them and making a fool of herself in the process.
at what this means for the next generation, that they will not be first if they want to pursue these jobs or any other. And that's the goal, right? To make sure we leave this country in a better place than we found it, make sure that all of our children, no matter where they're from, including a small town in Louisiana, can reach whatever their dreams are, and frankly, beyond our dreams. I didn't know this existed. So representation matters, but more, I think, as mothers, it matters for what we leave behind for our children. Whatever their dreams are, and frankly, beyond our dreams. I didn't know this existed. So can reach whatever their dreams are, and frankly, beyond our dreams. I didn't know this existed.
She didn't have the director of the Office of Management and Budget. She didn't know that that existed. She didn't know a White House press secretary job existed. She didn't know that the director of the Office of Management and Budget existed. By the way, did you all even know she was there before today? This is beyond my wildest dreams. I didn't even know this existed. This is beyond my dreams. What do? I am director of the Office of Management and Budget. That is me. That is me. That is me. Where are you from? I'm from Stonewall, Louisiana. And I am the director, and I am now director of the Office of Management and Budget. This is beyond my dreams. Dream the impossible dream.
In Louisiana, can reach whatever their dreams are, and frankly, beyond our dreams. I didn't know this existed. So representation.
Folks, I mean, this is beyond cringe. Ooh, I didn't even know this existed. Do you see? She's pouring it on thick. She's pouring it on thick. I didn't even know this existed. This was meet your dreams and beyond your dreams. I didn't even know this. She is so damn grateful. She is so grateful. Do you hear this? She is so grateful. I did not know this would be possible. I didn't know you could do such a thing. No, it's not Louisiana hold this L. I don't know which part of Slidell she's from, but yeah, it's not a Louisiana hold this L. It's Slidell or wherever the hell she from. They got to hold that. They got to hold that. Somebody in Grambling, come get old girl. In any case, yeah, she's literally sitting up here. This is what Joe Biden is trotting out. And this is what Roland Martin hopes for. See, this is a fundamental difference in worldview. Her and Kamala Harris and the rest of their nitwit trio out there, they seek to serve. They're just looking for a job for themselves. They're not looking to advance the people. They're just looking for a job. What she's going to tell herself is, well, I got this job, and then when his administration is over, I'm going to return back to Louisiana or maybe Texas or somewhere and tell them, hey, you got to hire me. I was the former director of the Office of Management and Budget. See, this is a fundamental difference in worldview. They seek a job and we seek power. She seeks to work for white people and we seek to work for ourselves as black people. That's the difference. That's the difference. That's the point they're making. This is a fundamental difference in worldview that's being sold. Immigrants or not. That's the fundamental difference in worldview, is who is it who wishes to serve the establishment and who is it who wishes to build a new one? Who wishes to serve the traditional masters and who wishes to become their own? This is the difference between what Joe Biden's vision of black folk and ours. This is a completely different vision. Not even remotely the same. It's completely different. But why? Why would they be so bold? Why would they be so bold and think to themselves they can get away with so much here? Why would they do that? Probably because they got a plan, or at least they tell themselves they have a plan. They certainly feel like they do. Well, if black folk are not going to get with the program, what do you do? What do you do? Well, don't worry. The Democrat Party's got an idea for that too. So if black folk are not going to get with the program, guess what? Don't worry. We can see about replacing that black population. No problem.
We're going to need higher taxes if we're going to pay for migrants to go to college.
Are you talking about this, Ainsley?
Yeah.
Was this my idea?
The cover of the New York Post. Take a look at this. Forget about the Tiger Woods story. Tuition, room, and border. The mayor of New York, Mayor Adams, is making a permanent welfare system for illegal migrants. He wants to send migrants to state college for free.
It's about time.
Did you realize that apparently,
a great idea.
Here in New York City,
Because he doesn't have housing for him in the city.
Right. Well, they've run out of luxury hotels.
Right.
The city of New York has a new department.
tourists.
It is called the Office of Asylum Seeker Operations. And what they've come up with is, because we've got so many migrants here in New York City, they're going to start shipping them throughout the state. And one of the suggestions, the plan is to send 100 migrants upstate to a state college in Sullivan County. And for those 100 migrants, based on the current prices, it would probably cost taxpayers of New York, but ultimately the United States, $1.2 million. This new incentive, college-age migrants get to go to New York City. Okay. So ultimately, if you are thinking about coming to New York City or going somewhere from in the United States from you're in another country, come to New York City. They'll put you into a college.
Yeah, so you got 40,000 here staying in luxury hotels in Manhattan, kicking out some of the homeless, by the way. They get better treatment than American homeless, which, guys, fight that out. Meanwhile, they continue to be a sanctuary city, so you can't say, well, woe is me. And now they have a separate division just to handle illegal immigrants. So they're going to come one, come all. So he has this brainstorm of sending them to college for $1.2 million. For those people working 2 jobs just to go to a community college, how do you feel about that? Part of your money that you're earning goes to taxes. So if they continued, about 50% of what you earn goes to taxes anyway. So they're going to go up to upstate New York. Elise Stefanik came out and says Mayor Adams is making a permanent welfare system for illegal immigrants in New York State. And you better just understand, when this word gets out to Central and South America and to Russia and Ukraine and Bolivia, wherever, you got to just multiply how many people are going to hop on the bus with their past.
So the article interviews people who live in that area, and one of them is Raj Patel. He's a 49-year-old resident. He says it's a nice, quiet town, and we don't know who these people are. They could be criminals. They could be drug dealers. Right. They have no documentation. Nope. I am an immigrant. I came here legally.
Yes.
Nobody gave me anything, Brian.
Exactly.
I wanted to go to college.
Actually, sir, you were given plenty. So, yeah, if you're an immigrant to America, you actually received a whole lot. So please, let's not keep perpetuating that lie. Let's not do that.
But
no.
I
started working and never stopped working. It seems unfair to me that you give free housing and a free college education to people just because you need a place to put them.
Brian, Ainsley paused because she was expecting you to continue to heckle her.
Right. No, I just needed you to make
I want to do color commentary.
Yeah.
So I'm just astounded by.
Now, the area that they're talking about there, I went and did a little research on that. You're talking about Sullivan County in New York. Sullivan County in New York, you can see by the numbers here, white non-Hispanic, and I also cross-reference this against the census. So white non-Hispanic population is 70%. White Hispanic is another 7.75%, so 78%. Multiracial non-Hispanic 2%. Multiracial Hispanic 2.82%. So there you go. There, about 80% of the population is white or white Hispanic or other Hispanic. It's a little over 80%. Black is 7.7%. Asian is 1.62%. Now, here's the thing that really should be beguiling. I want to back this up because I want you to hear this part again.
Yes, and just like you said earlier, just when you so you got 40,000 here
to a state college in Sullivan County, and for those 100 migrants, based on the current prices, it would probably cost taxpayers of New York, but ultimately the United States, one apartment. It is called the Office of Asylum Seeker Operations. And what they've come up with is, because we've got so many migrants here in New York City, they're going to start shipping them throughout the state. And one of the suggestions, the plan is to send 100 migrants upstate to a state college in Sullivan County. And for those 100 migrants, based on the current prices, it would probably cost taxpayers of New York, but ultimately the United States, $1.2 million. This new incentive, college-age migrants get to go to New York City. Okay. So ultimately, if you are thinking about coming to New York City or going somewhere from in the United States from you're in another country, come to New York City. They'll put you into a college.
Yeah, so you got 40,000 here staying in luxury hotels in Manhattan, kicking out some of the homeless, by the way. They get better treatment than American homeless, which, guys, fight that out. Meanwhile, they continue to be a sanctuary city, so you can't say, well, woe is me. And now they have a separate division just to handle illegal immigrants. So they're going to come one, come all. So he has this brainstorm of sending them to college for $1.2 million. For those people working 2 jobs just to go to a community college, how do you feel about that?
Now, you do understand that basically saying that they're sending them up north there to Sullivan, you do understand that basically it's saying they're going to make an enclave for them, right? because tuition will not be enough. Tuition won't be enough. Remember what I've told you all. Oh, no. See, you've got to give them an artificial leg up. They have to have artificial sustenance. They've got to have free housing, free health care, free schooling, now free tuition. So all the things that black folk have been blocked from for the longest time, these other folks here, if you're going to supplant black people, if you're going to leapfrog black folk, you got to give them everything that black folk haven't had, and then a whole lot more. It is not enough to just give them, well, here's a welfare check. That's not enough. That's not enough. So they got to get the whole, basically, they have to be readily installed as a ready-made middle class above black people. That's the whole point. They have to be installed as a ready-made middle class above black people. They got to come in above black people and have to be given all the resources necessary so they don't not hit the ground running, so they can just start flying. That's the whole point. We got to do that. So I want you to understand what this money is really buying, and the $300 million a year on illegals in New York City being propped up. The whole point of that is we have to install a ready-made non-black middle class above black people. And understand something. When in 10 years' time, let's just say you're talking to some college students, in 10 years' time, you got to understand, they're not going to tell the truth about what happened. They're not going to tell the truth about what happened. They're going to be talking like this dude. Why, I did it all myself. I started working and never stopped working. If you let them, nobody gave me anything. Well, he sounds like the white labor union people who had their labor jobs that were helping them. Yeah. These DACA kids and whatnot, in 10 years, what they will be saying is, nobody gave me anything. Why, I worked hard for what I got. Nobody gave me nothing. Well, what about all those incentives and all the college help and the free housing and the free health care that you received that you did not earn? It was just given to you on the fact that they were trying to racially gentrify and ethnically cleanse black folk. Well, I mean, you got to make the most of what you got there. Yeah, that did happen. Yeah, if you don't call them on it, they'll sit there and tell you they did it all on their own. And by the way, yes, I'm also aware that Mayor Eric Adams wants to start hiring the illegals to work for the city in New York. Now, I don't know how that's going to work because you're talking about unions up there and whatnot. And if the unions go along with that, that's the end of the union. I can tell you that right now. If the unions go along with that, that's the end of the union. What do you need a union for if you're going to bring in illegals? So if they go along with that, there goes the union. But yes, I am aware that, oh yeah, y'all got to understand, these are rich folk doing this. And let's take a look at this right here. So you're going to a place, Sullivan County, and you notice this thing, 7 out of 10 people are white. 7 out of 10 identify, almost 8 out of 10 identify as white. Now, why would these 8 out of 10 people who identify as white, what in the world do they have use for 100 illegals? Why would they need 100 illegals? Unless, of course, those illegals are going to occupy a specific position of servitude. So that's the way this works. They will be occupying a specific position of servitude. So folks who want their nannies and their yards cut and everything else, they'll tell these kids, oh, yeah, you're going to college and whatnot, but don't worry, you can mow lawns on the side. And next thing you know, we've repeated the process all over again. It is not accidental.
I came here legally.
Yes.
Nobody gave me anything, Brian.
Exactly.
I wanted to go to college.
But
No.
I
started working and never stopped working. It seems unfair to me that you give free housing and a free college education to people just because you need a place to put them.
Brian, Ainsley paused because she was expecting you to continue to heckle her.
By the way, in case anybody thought I was just making it up or whatever, you saw what he said there.
You give free housing and a free college education to people just because you need a place to put them.
It seems unfair to me that you give free housing and free college education. So in other words, they're being treated like the children of an upper middle class family from day one. Didn't earn anything, but we need you to help take up the cause of the race war against black people because you will uphold the system. Black people in New York are trying to overthrow it. So the black folk in New York City, they're telling you there's no funds to do anything like this for black folk. There's no funds to do anything like this for black folk, but they got money for everything else.
Ainsley paused because she was expecting you to continue to heckle her.
Right. No, I just needed you to make
I want to do color commentary.
Yeah.
So I'm just astounded by this. And just like you said earlier, just when you say to yourself, the crime stats are going down, at least he's appearing at all the events and going to where the problems are.
Just when you like him.
And you just say to yourself, please
something crazy.
Just try to do it right. Then this hits you right in the face.
I loved what he said about his faith, and I'm like, oh, well, I'm going to like this guy. I'm going to give him a chance. And then he doesn't pay for my daughter to go to college, but he's making me pay for the illegals on the street.
Well, ultimately, though, it talks about how this story does in the New York Post. Check it out, NewYorkPost.com. How he's looking to other cities throughout the state to move more migrants out of New York City. So this is just the tip of the iceberg here.
Now, doesn't this sound familiar? When drunk Uncle Lightfoot was running Chicago, she was bringing in illegals into the city and then taking them out and dropping them off into the suburbs and everywhere else. So Chicago was the entry point, but it was just a distribution point to send them off in other directions.
But keep in mind, you're probably thinking, oh, the people of New York are going to pay $1.2 million for that. Ultimately, the city will be reimbursed by the federal government for all of this.
Everyone's paying for it.
Everybody watching will pay for those migrants.
This might be a way for him to say, we don't have any more room in the city. I don't want to be criticized for shuttling people out and putting them on buses, but if I give them college.
Listen, if you're a migrant, it's fantastic.
Right?
It's absolutely fantastic.
I can't get my head around it. I'll say this. I'm not sure the federal government's reimbursing him. As great friends as he is with Joe Biden, he's asked for $4 billion now for a year and a half.
That's true.
And Biden says, no, I don't think so. I don't think we can budget that.
Get the money.
He's asked Governor Hochul for money. She's like, I'll give you $700 million, but that's about it. Meanwhile, New York City just his tax out the you-know-what, and it's only going to go up. And we're over, by the way, and it's buried in debt.
Well, I have a feeling.
Yeah, they always say that when black folks show up. When black people show up, all of a sudden you're mired in debt and there's big old problems there. Yeah, when black people show up, there's nothing you can do. We ain't got no money. Everybody pleads poverty when black people show up. When black people show up and talk about what needs to be done for us, all of a sudden they start pleading poverty. Oh, we don't have money in the budget for that. But you notice for illegals, they just showed up with unlimited sums of money. And by the way, listen to me very carefully. They didn't just articulate unlimited sums of money. They articulated the exact same Black Marshall Plan that the Black Channel has been talking about now for over a decade. That they're taking them to specific places, making specific enclaves. They're funding it. Up there in Chicago, here, we'll put you all in a building in a school. Pay your room and your board and food and everything else you need so you can hit the ground running. They're starting them off with a financed community. In other words, all the things they tell us that they can't do. All the things that they keep saying to us they can't do. We don't have the money. We can't afford that. And yet in New York City, and New York's not the only place because the article that I was showing you all there, the article actually goes on to say, let me go ahead and get that back on the screen. Want you to see what the article itself says, because the article is actually talking about something else. The article is actually talking about something else, about how there's House Dems proposed bill to grant amnesty to millions of illegal immigrants. Now, they're talking about at the federal level, not New York. A group of House Democrats is reviving an effort to give a pathway to citizenship to millions of illegal aliens who are already in the U.S. by updating a nearly century-old registry to allow for their statuses to be adjusted. So remember, when black folks say stuff, they tell us, oh, you going back to laws and treaties and regulations that are just too old to be enforced. Well, guess what's happening in Congress? Now it says 6 Democrats this week reintroduced the renewing immigration provisions of the Immigration Act of 1929. This bill would update a status adjustment process commonly known as the registry that allows for those in the country illegally before a certain date to have their status regularized. The registry was last updated in 1986, and at that time allowed for illegal immigrants who have been in the country continuously since 1972 to have their status adjusted. Y'all talk about status correction? You status correction people don't know nothing. This is status correction. Immigrants who have been in the country continuously since 1972, don't you mean smuggled out, to have their status adjusted and obtain a green card, which in turn would allow them to apply for U.S. citizenship. The Democrats introducing the bill, Representatives Zoe Lofgren, Democrat California, Norma Torres, Democrat California, Lou Correa, Democrat California, Grace Ming, Democrat New York, Adriano Espaillat, Democrat New York, and Jesus Chuy Garcia, Democrat Illinois, said it would affect approximately 8 million immigrants, a population greater than the state of Arizona. In a press release, the Democrats said that 148 local, regional, and national organizations support the measure. Lofgren, the lead sponsor of the bill, took a shot at Republicans for political stunts on immigration and the border. Quote, while the extreme MAGA Republicans make dozens of trips to the border and perform other political stunts, my colleagues and I are once again focusing on immigration action by reintroducing this common sense registry legislation that is simply an update of the law that was first put in place in 1929. No, it is not. This is a radical, it doesn't need to be updated if the law is already in place. It doesn't need to be updated. You want to do something different. You want to do something different. Now look at this here. It's no secret that immigrants built our nation. Sir, it's not a secret because it's not true. And those who came to the United States years ago in search of a better life and have set down roots here deserve a chance at permanent residence. The folk you're trying to legalize didn't do that. There are currently millions of immigrants living in legal limbo. They're not in legal limbo. They're here illegally. Their status is very clear. You're illegal. Who face an uncertain future regarding their residency status. Our bill will provide them with a pathway toward citizenship, allowing roughly 8 million immigrants who have been residing in the U.S. for at least 7 years. If you've been in the U.S. for at least 7 years, a chance to obtain their green cards through registry. Democrats have previously made a number of attempts to grant amnesty to millions of illegals, including a registry update attempt, but so far, they've been thwarted. The Biden administration and congressional Democrats introduced a sweeping immigration bill in early 2021, which included a pathway to citizenship for millions of illegals already in the country. When that bill failed to pick up any Republican support, Democrats attempted to get a number of forms of amnesty through via the budget reconciliation process later in the year. One of those attempts included an update to the registry. All the options were rejected by the Senate parliamentarian as inappropriate for a budget bill. The effort eventually fell apart after Senator Joe Manchin of Virginia withdrew his support. But the push for legalization of illegal immigrants has continued, including with calls for Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas, Vice President Kamala Harris, and President Biden, who made an appeal at the State of the Union address last month. Quote, America's border problems won't be fixed until Congress acts. If we won't pass my comprehensive immigration reform, at least pass my plan to provide the equipment and officers to secure the border, finish the wall, and a pathway to citizenship for dreamers, those on temporary status, farm workers, and essential workers. Now, once again, whenever black folk were out here in the streets hustling, if you bought a car with illegal funds, you were immediately subject to asset forfeiture, something that the states still do to this day. And yet these states that have all been famous for asset forfeiture are not going to these farms, these businesses that employ the illegals, arresting the owners and confiscating all of their equipment. Now, you notice they're not doing that. And let me tell you, a farm is a hell of a whole lot harder to replace than a car with some 36-inch wheels. So this is not accidental. This is policy. It is not accidental. It's policy. So they are desperate now to nullify that black vote because they can no longer rely on it. Kamala Harris's fortunes turning for the worse. That's them articulating, we can no longer rely on the black vote the way that we previously did. Therefore, we need to neutralize that black vote and replace it with something else. Something that will be more agreeable to us. And of course, they're using Negroes who are handpicked for the purposes of doing that. However, you might disagree. Therefore, the telephone lines are now open. The number is 646-787-1933. That's 646-787-1933, your personal access code to the Black media. I would like to thank everyone who has contributed to support tonight's program here on PayPal, CashApp, Super Chat. Thank you to everybody in Super Chat there. Tommy Felix. This is why the B1 Media needs all of our support. The trick bag is in. Stay on code. B1 Militia. Absolutely. Thank you very much for that. And to everyone who's contributed to support tonight's program on PayPal, CashApp, Venmo. Thank you very much for your support. We're going to take a very brief commercial, non-commercial break. When we come back, we'll be taking your phone calls and more. This is the Black Channel.
Venark Motion Pictures, your leading production house for handmade, high-end movies for us, by us. Grab your popcorn and drinks as Venark Motion Pictures presents you with binge-worthy visual entertainment that will leave you breathless. Stream all our titles for free. Visit our website to see Noxious, Noxious 2, Cold Case, and Valley of the Queens. Planned Obsolescence. These power-packed, innovative, and unforgettable flicks tick the boxes of all you could ever want in a movie. And coming soon to keep you at the edge of your seat. Await our most anticipated movie release. Escape from Velocity. Venark Motion Pictures. Broadcast excellence. Look for us on Tubi, Amazon, and wherever movies are streamed.
Order yours today to experience all the benefits of Ash Kickin' Natural Body Butter. With skin so smooth and soft, you'll thank us for it. Shop Ash Kickin' online. That's ASHKICKIN.com.
Greetings, brothers and sisters. My name is Joe Jackson. I'm a foundational Black American, and I entered the field of IT with the goal of helping the family globally. The industry's been changing, and I've learned a lot. But how did we get here? How do we navigate issues we face in the workplace? How can we get our house in order? Read The Concept and Intricacies of Being Black in IT, now on Amazon, as well as the best-selling Guide to Being Black in IT. Go to beingblackinit.com.
More Threads. A brand owned by a descendant of Black American freedmen was created to uniquely address Black American history and contributions that have been intentionally hidden and suppressed. Use their apparel and more to learn and share the Black American history of Black inventions, heroes, towns, Black business districts, and more. Sign up and support not only a Black-owned business, but a movement at www.morethread.co.
Hi, this is Brenda Starr, creator of Poetry with a Purpose and author of the book Pressed But Not Crushed. Pressed But Not Crushed is an anthology of political poems that address current and historical issues in American descendants of slave population and African American population. The book describes slaveries and its residuals, Jim Crow segregation, social depredation, and other relevant issues to American descendants of slaves and African Americans, including the current political climate that does not address our issues.
This is The Black Channel. I am your host, your brother, your humble servant, the Black Authority, and the telephone lines are now open. The number is 646-787-1933. That's 646-787-1933, your personal access code to the Black media. We are very glad to have you all with us here tonight. Looks like Blog Talk's got their act together for the evening, so we're glad to have that as well. We're going to go ahead and get to the phone lines here. The number is 646-787-1933. Let me get caller from area code 646. You're on live with The Black Channel. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
This is Onan from Queens.
Onan from Queens, what's on your mind?
Yeah, so when you say that these immigrants have communities that they could just migrate to and they could set up life and have families and establish businesses, that is so true, because if you go to Jackson Heights in Queens, like, it's literally just a haven for South Asian and Central and South Americans, and I'm pretty sure that quite a few of these individuals do not have any legal documentation, and yet they're just able to come here and be amongst their people and set up lives. And yet they're constantly telling people that, that they don't have anything for Black people, foundational Black Americans, and I'm just sick of it,
Yeah, like I say, New York has been a problem now for a while. And now New York is becoming a problem for everybody else. It's this giant incubator that is sucking in, this absolutely destabilizing element at an alarming rate. And now they're just shipping their problems everywhere else. That's the issue. So it's been between New York and California. You have these two centralized hubs that create these problems, and now they're dumping them on states that never had these problems before, or making them issues for places that never had those issues before. Thank you very much for giving us a call. Let me get caller from area code 323. You're on live with The Black Channel. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Hey, good evening, big brother Jason. This is brother Elijah calling out of Jamaica, Queens, New York City.
All right, Elijah, Jamaica, Queens, what's on your mind?
I got a question, and I'm gonna land my plane. Do you foresee them actually neutralizing us, just drowning us out? Because if they do that, that means they would have to deplete the population in their and these migrants' home countries to bring a lot of them in, and then just drown us out completely. Is that possible? That can happen?
Yeah. Okay. You got to understand, there's several things going on here simultaneously. One of the things in particular is, first of all, they're looking at the population. You need a large population if you're going to continue running the world's largest military. That's the first thing. You're going to need a very large population, a population that continues to grow, especially now, since you're no longer taking a look at just staring down Russia or the Middle East. You're now looking at staring down China. 1.5 billion people strong. So you're going to need a large population to continue making the largest military in the world. And they don't give a damn where the bodies come from, so long as they got somebody to put on a plane in a camouflage suit and go send off to war somewhere. So that's fueling this. the economy. They don't care where the workers come from, so long as they're able to continue fueling the economy in the interest of white power. So that's up in play. And last but not least, destabilizing black people, because black people have been an ever-present threat, an ever-escalating threat, because we are the only people who have fought white supremacy in all of its forms, including its military-industrial complex before it was even called a military-industrial complex. We have been doing it since the very beginning. So when you put all of those together, you have a vested interest in sucking in as many of these people as you can. Not only it is not going to empty out those places, because children are the investments of the poor. So what you actually wind up doing is containing those areas as perpetually impoverished. The best and the brightest leave those places. The folks who are really valuable stay in those places. The folks who flee and run and will cut and run at a moment's notice are the ones who come over here. So those folks, this is the last stop for them, because they don't have another place to go. It's not like they have anywhere else they can go. So essentially, this is their last stop, so they're left to your mercy when you get here. So the places that they're from are destabilized. And because remember, America doesn't just let you get up and run around if you want to. It's hard to lose your U.S. citizenship. America doesn't let you just get up and run around when you want to. These other places, they're up here fleeing. So America's the last stop. And what it does is it makes sure that South America and Central America remain destabilized, remain economically, destabilized. You get their best and brightest, but you also, remember, capitalism needs two forces in the dynamic. I want you all to understand, capitalism requires two forces in the dynamic. You need the affluent and you need the poor. You need, if you're going to have an aristocracy, then you're going to have a proletariat working class. You got to have it. And they don't give a damn where it comes from. So they have just as much of a vested interest in getting I keep saying it over and over again, the best and brightest and the poorest. They have just as much of a vested interest in sucking out the brain drain of the best and brightest from these other nations, as much as they do bringing in the poor ones. They both even the scale out.
Yes, sir. Look, thank you so much, big brother. All right, because this is some very scary stuff that black people are facing. I hope we wake up soon.
Thank you very much for giving us a call. Let me get caller area code 571. You're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where you calling from?
My name is Shakir. I'm calling from Arlington, Virginia.
Okay, Shakir, you called in last night. One call per weekend. Thank you very much for giving us a call. One call per weekend, folks. One call per weekend. Let me get caller from area code 929. You're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Good evening, Jason. This is Daryl from Chicago.
Daryl from Chicago. What's on your mind?
Jason, excellent broadcast. You hit the nail right on the head with everything. As you know, you spoke last night briefly with a brother there from Chicago. He's telling you exactly what's going on there. Like I said, over in the area where I live at, on the south side, they're trying their best to push as much as they can in there, but the people over there ain't selling. So they're trying to switch kind of laws around. And that ain't working. And then because of the election, that's a whole up right there. So they're trying their best to get those enclaves that blacks have been in there for years out. They're trying to replace them. You're absolutely right.
This is not something that they jumped up on a random weekend and decided to do. This is policy. Thank you very much for giving us a call tonight. Let me get caller from area code 323. You're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where you calling from?
My name is Jonathan. I'm calling from Los Angeles.
All right, Jonathan from Los Angeles. What's on your mind?
Message to all black women. Kamala Harris is not black. She is a Brahmin Indian who is lying about being black. Why? Because her entire political career 100% depends on the black vote. So how do we conquer the Brahmin Indian carpetbagger named Kamala Harris? Simple. Do not vote for her. Do not vote for Joe Biden. Do not vote for any politician until we get $40 trillion in reparations first. Cut the check. I have nothing else to say.
Thank you very much for giving us a call tonight. Let me get caller from area code 917. You're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Hello, this is Rich calling from Hewlett, New York.
All right, Rich from Hewlett, New York. What's on your mind?
Yes, I never believed the extent of influx of immigrants that we have until last month. I went down to my headquarters to process it out. I'm retiring New York City employee. 125 Worth Street is where I press this out. Across the street is the Federal Immigration Building, the Javits Federal Building. The line from the Brooklyn Bridge at Chambers Street up to the Federal Building, thousands of men, 75% men online. All these people going to the Federal Building to process in to begin to get benefits, housing, and monetary benefits. No one knows this. This is not shown on the news. People don't know about this. I took video of it. I took 3 videos, so maybe if I get the email, I can send them to you. But you just don't see this on the news. Every day, people at headquarters said every day they look out the window, there's lines, thousands of people waiting to process at the Javits Building. Where's this money coming from? How is this going to be sustained? What is New York or the country going to do? How are we going to deal with this? It's insane.
This is national policy. Like I explained to Elijah, this is national policy. Black folk are not going with the program the way they used to. More is being demanded, and the way in which they're now saying we're federally funding it. We're going to fund it locally, state, and of course, as you heard, that money's going to come from the feds to reimburse them. So yes, it serves all those purposes. In New York City is being used. They call them sanctuary cities, but what they really mean are unopposed processing centers. So you can't do it in Texas and most of the other places, but New York City has agreed to go along with it. California is agreeing to go along with it because they know what they're doing. And let's be very, very clear. Understand what the goal is here. By bringing in all of these non-black illegals, what their hope is that they'll never have to pay out reparations because, well, if we just drown the black vote, well, yeah, we can support reparations without ever actually having to go through with it. So it'll become one of those campaign things where you can actually have Democrats saying, well, of course I support reparations. And then amazingly enough, year after year, oh, well, we just can't seem to get it through. So recognize what you're looking at there. If you want to send me that video, you can just send it to my email address, theblackauthority@yahoo.com. Thank you very much for giving us a call tonight. Let me get caller area code 279. You're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Dicey out of Sacramento.
Okay, Dicey out of Sacramento. What's on your mind?
No, I said Dicey out of Sacramento.
Okay, work on your phone. Dicey out of Sacramento. What's on your mind?
My bad. Yeah, no, Jason, I actually seen it all play out right in front of my eyes. I've been meaning to tell you a couple weeks ago, I went down to the local Sacramento Works, which is basically a city-ran job hiring facility. So I'm there trying to get the job, looking for a job, and they tell me about the grand opening they're having in a couple of days. And so I had to RSVP for it and everything. They said it was going to have food. So I just strolled up there like, all right, let me, and it was a real grand event. I mean, they had the cops there, special parking spots. When I walked in, okay, the lady was like, oh, can I help you? And I'm like, I'm here for the grand opening. So I sat down. They had the mayor there, Mia Vang, and I was just kind of shocked at how many like politicians and like important people in suits were there. So as the grand opening goes along, they explain how the facility was here for the immigrants in the community and refugees, and how it was a new thing to help the community and this and that. And as it went on, I began to get hip to the program because of listening to you for so many years. And I just began to notice, are they ever going to even mention the word black? And they went through the whole 30, 45-minute speeches and stuff, and they never mentioned the word black. There was about 6 speakers, and they all talked about how they had immigrants in their family, immigrant background. So they really bond over this immigrant thing. But then, Jason, they also had the actual immigrants come up and speak. And they really broke down the game at how, hello?
Yes, brother, you're on. That's why your phone's still on.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you, Jason. Thank you. I really wanted to tell you this, too. So the refugees came up and they said basically it was the owner, employer refugee, and employee refugee. So the employer refugee came up and said how he came from Afghanistan and he basically wanted to be a doctor at first, but they wouldn't accept his doctor's degree. So after that was a no-go, he opened up a healthcare interpretation business, and that failed. And after the interpretation healthcare business failed, he opened up an interpretation tax business. And this, he said,
okay, brother, give us the Reader's Digest version. Give us the Reader's Digest version. We can't have the lecture version, so give us the short version of it.
Okay, so basically, like you said, he had one business that failed. He started the next business, and it succeeded. And he got like 2,000 clients giving it to him. And it really broke down how what you're saying, how he basically had a chances to fail. His business failed, and he was allowed to open up a new business and succeed. It gave him the clients. And so, like I said, at the center that they're opening up is in the middle of the hood. It's right across the street from Luther Burbank High School. And it was just very sad how it was a black neighborhood, and they had this meeting talking about giving away money and jobs and helping the community, and they didn't even mention the word black. It was so awkward with the black people being there because they have black politicians, and none of the speakers
Well, no,
were
I mean,
black.
that's
Like,
the whole point of it. That's what you saw in Chicago. What they'll do is they'll point to these, quote, abandoned, derelict structures. They'll point to them and then tell you black folk don't have the economic means to revitalize their neighborhoods. Then they'll bring over a bunch of Afghan refugees, Ukrainian refugees. In Shreveport, it made the news because we had when the Croatian conflict kicked off during the Clinton administration, they brought a bunch of Croatians to Shreveport, Louisiana. To Shreveport, They brought them to. So and you've seen this ever since, for example, the Vietnam War. I mentioned about this before. The reason why you have such a prominent, if not extremely large, but certainly prominent Vietnamese population down there in New Orleans is because after the Vietnam conflict, they started bringing over a bunch of Vietnam refugees and dropping them off in New Orleans. Now, what they said was that, well, it's because they come from a fisherman background, and New Orleans, has a strong fisherman infrastructure down there. And well, yeah, that may be true, but that isn't where they stayed. And then you end up with your Asian New Orleans council people talking about black folk in the hood and fried chicken. So that's not accidental. So in Chicago, you see Lori Lightfoot bringing them to the black folks neighborhood. She's not dropping them off in Lincoln Park. She's not dropping them off up there. She's not dropping them off in Hyde Park, Lincoln Park. She isn't doing that. Wasn't doing that. Same thing in Sacramento. They find black neighborhoods, then they start funding them. Now, we've seen this forever when it comes to the liquor stores and the Lebanese and folk like that. So they find a black neighborhood, they give them some funding, things that are denied black people. Now, they tell black people, you can't get that because your credit's all messed up. This dude just flew in from the Taliban. What do you mean my credit's messed up? So they give them a place to stay, they give them refugee assistance, they give them funding, they give them a location, and when they come and talk to you, their version of the events is, I pulled myself up by my bootstraps, I did it all by myself, blah, blah, blah. When in reality, if you attempt to make money as a black man in California, if you attempt to make money illegally, it doesn't matter if it's drugs, if it's PPP loans, if you're not paying taxes, if you don't have permits. California is awful for permits. How in the hell is it these illegals got businesses popping and don't qualify for a single permit? But if you try to get an enterprise of even some viability going without all your permits, they coming and shutting it down. Fire marshal, tax assessor, whoever, they're coming and shutting that down. There's a permit for anything they want to shut your business down for in California. So if these illegals here are making it, it's because they're being allowed to. And they're being allowed to by virtue of looking the other way, which means you're the target. Yeah, we're here to make sure If we bring in white folk, that's going to be too obvious. We're going to bring in these immigrants and they're going to colonize your neighborhood. We're going to bring them in. We're going to fund them. We're going to set them up. We're going to give them access to things and they'll colonize the neighborhood. Thank you very much for giving us a call. Let me get caller Mary code 502. You're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Yeah, this is James from, I live in Louisville, Kentucky, but I'm from New York. And a couple of weeks ago, me and my daughter went to New York. We went to 42nd Street in Times Square, and she wanted to take a picture with Elmo. So, you know, I got Elmo. We took, like, 4 other people jumped in. Iron Man, Mickey Mouse, and some Minnie Mouse. They all jumped in the picture. I take a picture. After I take the picture, they all surround me. Talk no English. All Mexican, like they was fresh here. All wanted money. All wanted money. I was so pissed off. I gave them $1 a piece. $4. Split that. But how do they have, how have they cornered the market on Times Square, 42nd Street with these costumes on? Like, they're just taking over. And then you have, in Queens, you have a fake police station going on, a Asian Chinese police station. I used to live in Flushing, Queens. It's literally ran by the Chinese. They have Chinese banks, Chinese writing on their grocery stores, Chinese things everywhere. They have taken over Flushing, Queens. It's ridiculous. And then we know the Jews have taken over Brooklyn. So
that's the cost of doing that. This was not something that showed up overnight. This has been a gradual process that they put in place. It's death by 1,000 cuts, and it is specifically for the purposes of boxing in and blocking off black folk so that you can't move. Thank you very much for giving us a call. Let me get caller Mary code 929. You're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
It's B1 Miz calling out of the Bronx, New York. Let me ask you a question, Jake. What's your prediction? Because what's the inverse law you see happening out of this? Because they doing all this to tend to hurt us. This shit gonna backfire on their ass in some sort of way. How you see that playing out?
Well, technically no, because this is all part of the plan. I don't do this because I want black people to be afraid. I do this because I want black people to know what's coming so you can make the proper steps. I've been saying it for over a decade now. It is no less true today. They hate you because you are black, but they're able to victimize you because you are poor. The agenda being interracialism, integrationism, if I can dare to use that nomenclature. The agenda being, well, if we can just get some religion, if we can just get some more politics, if we can just get one of our sorority brothers or sorority sisters, if we can do that, with that being the idea, carrying over these antiquated and quite frankly fraudulent agendas of the civil rights generation and World War II generation. They pulled off the greatest con job ever by convincing them that the agenda will be fraudulent. That's what they're doing. We're going to make the agenda fraudulent. Now, they're not playing about that. That's not a game. We've been different. We have been different. We've been saying something totally different now, which is, hey, enough of that. We're not talking about being the first black anything, which is why they keep hammering home about the first black. And now it has deteriorated to the point that you had a biracial Obama and now a chick who is she's not racially ambiguous. She's racially schizophrenic. Kamala Harris is the first transracial candidate, not Rachel Dolezal. Kamala Harris is the first officially transracial candidate. If you don't like Asians, you can vote for the black. If you don't like blacks, you can vote for the Asian. If you don't like neither blacks nor Asians, vote for the female. And let's just stop it there, lest she get more creative. But that is a direct result. That is a direct result of their being desperate. They're being desperate because the black vote is no longer reliable. I started this a decade ago. You got to understand, we weren't supposed to make it this far. We were just supposed to be some noisy niggas on YouTube who were going to fizzle out and go away. That's what was supposed to happen. We were supposed to just be some noisy niggas on YouTube who were just supposed to fizzle out, and that was going to be the end of that. They figured we'd make it 6 months, maybe a year, and that would be over. They had no idea that presidents would come and go and that we would eventually develop and mature into a competent media class that would invade the traditional broadcast media and bring the sermon of freedom worldwide. That was never supposed to happen. We were supposed to get us a little bit of money. We did a crowdfunding. We were supposed to go off, trick it off on money, hoes, and clothes. And that was supposed to be the end of that. And some folk did, but not enough. Not enough. There were too many true believers. And now the true believers have taken over the national narrative. So they're like, ooh, hell, we need plan B. Who I spoke to was the young. I spoke to the young. I spoke to the young from day one, and I continue to do so today. I am the voice of their anger and their discontent and their unapologetic, uncompromising nature as young people. I was the guy who spoke for them when I said, you got to watch these old niggas. Because the young people understand that, because they see themselves getting sold out by the old every day. So they gather around the voice that acknowledges the obvious to them, that you're supposed to be able to rely on the older generation, but unfortunately, the older generation is first in line to sell out the young. So you see, we touched them in that way, and now we've got a new message. So the Democrats and the political establishment, the clergy, when the George Floyd protests popped off, when the George Floyd's uprising happened, those were the young people in the streets. There was no room for the clergy. Out, Reverend Sharpton. There was no room for the bought and paid for bootlick academics. Out, Michael Eric Dyson, Mark Lamont Schill, and the rest of your ilk. There was no room on the street for any of them. The young folks in the street were repeating what they had heard from us here and made more progress in a non-election year than you'd ever made in an election year in 4 decades. And they realized there was a new way under the sun to get things done. Now the political establishment is trying to calm everybody down and say, well, why don't you listen to what we got to say? No, we've come with our own agenda. And of course, they're doing what is predictable. We're going to see if we can just promote an agenda that's different here and try to mislead you. Now you've got us out here, and every time they try to mislead people, we keep clearing it up to the extent that Kamala Harris does not want to show her face nor her voice. We talked to the young people starting 15 years ago, and now those young people have started to grow up and mature. And we have been relentless on them. Get your money together. Get your skill set together so you're not an entry-level employee. Get your credit together. If your mama was the biggest slut in the housing projects and had the cable TV in your name at 5 years old, don't you be like that dumb heifer. You supposed to be leading. Male and female, you need to be serious. You need to be on code with each other. And that code forms the foundation upon which you will build your economy. You know why? Because the immigrant class is on code. They got a code with each other. And their code is lie, cheat, steal, whatever you got to do. We doing it for us. Tell everybody you're with them. Right up until the last second. Turn the screw. Yikes. So that bait and switch that the civil rights generation went for, hook, line, and sinker, we're not. You see, when they come and talk to y'all now, you got your heads up. You got your eyes open, your ears up, and your heads up. You're ready for it. So when you start recognizing these signs of deceit and deception, you're starting to call it for what it is. That wasn't happening 15 years ago. Politicians weren't showing up at political rallies and churches and HBCUs and folk were confronting them about what they said. That wasn't happening 15 years ago. And you remember what I told you, their strategy is going to be to try to convince you that you don't exist, that none of this is real and it doesn't exist. That's going to be their job, to convince you that this is not real, that you don't matter, that you're just a small part and a small cog and you are irrelevant. And I told you, if you want to know if we are a competent political operative class for you, when the elections rolled around, did what we say to you, was it reliable? And we told you in Stacey Abrams' case, in 2018, Stacey Abrams lost by a hair. In 2022, Stacey Abrams got the brakes and rotors beat off of her. In a state that Joe Biden had won 2 years prior, Stacey and Raphael Warnock won. Joe Biden won. Raphael Warnock fighting tooth and nail against damn me Herschel Incoherent Walker. Raphael Warnock skid by the skin of his teeth. Stacey Abrams got the brakes and rotors beat off of her, which was exactly as we predicted. And it's broken the way we told you. Andrew Gillum, you ain't gonna make it. Kamala Harris, you ain't gonna make it. Cory Booker, you ain't gonna make it. Stacey Abrams, you ain't gonna make it. In places where they assured you the fix was in. Don't worry, we gonna get it taken care of, and it went nowhere. What's his name down there in Louisiana? Gary Chambers, you ain't gonna make it. By the way, how'd that work out, Gary? Gary was going to make all of us dope-smoking pro-abortionists. That's what Gary was going to do. Now Gary can go get blowed all he wants to now. You see, that wasn't supposed to happen. We're supposed to just come out and, quote, get out the vote. And what they're doing is they're running headlong into a steel reinforced brick wall called a black agenda. And it is young people who understand what the agenda is, and the young folk are not afraid to stay home and not vote until you give them something to vote for. You see, back in the 90s, they got a whole bunch of young black folk who were coming into college back then. They were watching A Different World and The Cosby Show, and they were being told to become politically viable. They were watching Arsenio Hall. They were told to be politically conscious because that was part of socially conscious. Yeah, we understood that, but it was a bait and switch. It was a trick bag. Bill Clinton was in office, so you were being conditioned to vote for your own destruction. Well, if we can just get some black politicians in office, and we were the ones who came along a decade later and told them they own all the black politicians. Voting for quote unquote the black Democrat is not going to help you because the white supremacist Democrats own him. He will do what they say. So when you had your attorney general in Minnesota there, so-called first black Muslim in the House of Representatives, when you had him there, and I warned everybody he didn't do very much for us then. And I warned everybody, by the way, after the murder of George Floyd, don't look for him to do anything. Keith Ellison, what did he do? What did Keith Ellison do? Keith Ellison was hiding, ducking, diving, didn't want to indict anybody. He was like, I'll be damned. I didn't know I was going to have to actually do something once I got elected. Keith Ellison didn't think that was going to occur. We showed up, rolled up. Next thing you know, the city turned up. And we started bailing people out of jail to let them know there's going to be some finance behind this revolution. Next thing you know, we better get them cops arrested. We better get them indicted, and we better get them tried and hogtied and convicted quick. And it went down quick. That was something you had not seen before. What's been missing up to this point is a unified, articulated black agenda. That's what's been missing. And that is the purpose of making the distinction between those of us who are the descendants of the slaves, the freedmen, the foundationals, and everyone else, to let them know this is the code. This is the code. And I will say one more thing here. We have survived wholesale international warfare and slaughter. We have survived the greatest atrocity in human history. We have survived an ongoing white supremacist establishment. As long as we stay on code, they can do whatever they think is going to work. We will still be here. The reason that it will ultimately fail isn't necessarily because it will backfire. It is because you're trying to drown an ocean. And that's ultimately never going to work. We are never going to give this up. White supremacy is an ever-evolving organism. Black empowerment is an ever-enduring one. Call America 347, you're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Sienna from the Bronx, New York, native New Yorker.
Tiana from the Bronx, what's on your mind?
I just want to say that, Eric Adams, I really wanted to support him. As a matter of fact, I did support him because I figured, this is a black man, came from the struggle. Originally, when he ran, the idea was that he was a black American. After he won, now people are saying he has like Jamaican ancestry, but that's besides the point.
Okay, well, slow down.
Really ironic.
Slow down. Brake pedal for a moment. I wanted to support this black man. They said he was part of the struggle. What struggle are you referring to? This nigga's a cop. What struggle are you referring to?
He was arrested as a child. I'm sorry. He was arrested as a child. He went through homelessness and raised by a single mother. Not that those are hallmarkers of, they shouldn't be like the hallmarkers of a black
I'm trying to figure out which part of this is the struggle against white supremacy. Sounds like he was struggling against something else. So I'm trying to figure out when we say the word struggle, folks, we got to be on code. We can't go for this. Well, they black, so I'm just going to assume that they understand what's going on. This is how they keep bringing through these Trojan horses, because we keep assuming things. Because we don't really want to have to do the thorough vetting. No, you got to take everybody's paperwork. We need to get this through our heads, particularly as foundational folk. You need to get this through your head. New York City has become an incubator of black folk who are not on code. They've got a bunch of folks up there pretending that they're descendants of slaves, riding undercover, and just hoping that you just assume it's okay. And while there technically isn't anything wrong with them not being descendants, technically there's nothing wrong with it. But what we're noticing is too many are coming with a different code, and we got to get everybody on code. So no, you cannot assume anything. And by the way, that also extends to outside of New York, Baltimore, Philadelphia. They done bought off all here's the bottom line. If the Democrat Party, if one of the major political parties brought this person to you, you should already be suspicious off the rip. Off the rip.
Right.
Jason, what is the standard of suspicion? Did one of the political parties bring them to you? Is he running under one of the political parties? Yes, he is. Then they would not have put him there if they already didn't have a stamped receipt with his name on it.
Right.
And you're going to have to accept, as uncomfortable as that might seem, you are going to have to accept that as the objective reality. It is your responsibility, Tiana. It is your responsibility to accept that as the objective reality with every person who shows up or approaches you, with every person that you speak to about politics and the city. You need to make sure that's the position that you are articulating and repeating to everyone. The standard isn't, are they black? The standard is, are they on code? And if the political parties brought them, that's your first sign. They're not on code.
Thank you. But if I can quickly just kind of get in here, I think there are people like my son, you know, straight A students who have to, like, already he's a sophomore and we're out here, you know, just trying to put together money for him to go to college. We're applying for scholarships, but he would allow migrants, illegal, you know, immigrants to go to college for free. That's so
because
bogus.
we have to neutralize your son. Because we have to remember those DACA kids are not going to be competing against the white kids because they can't.
Yeah,
because they can't. Because they can't.
Mm-hmm.
Remember what Dr. Claude Anderson has been teaching us for 40 years. The white economy is locked in box. The wealth is frozen. So you see, that's already spoken for their children. So there isn't going to be any Latino competition for the white wealth. That's already spoken for. You can't move that. So the only competition will be against your kids.
Yes. Yes. I see that clearly. Yes. But I just, like I said, I can't understand. It's just like unconscionable that you would, and he gave black people a hip hop museum as if our children don't need free college tuition.
Yeah, you give them a hip hop museum, and you're giving the illegals concrete tangibles.
Education.
No. They're giving them money. Let's stop the bull jive. They're giving them money. They're cutting the check. That's why I was playing that for you. They're not just giving them scholarships, sister. I know you got a kid. Come on. We got to get up to speed. That's why I was thinking. They're not just giving them scholarships. Stop. You're going to have to unwrap that around your head. They said we're giving them housing. Come on now. We got to stop fighting that. They said they're giving them housing. Yeah, they're not just sending them up north to get a scholarship. They're giving them money. They're being given money. They're not putting them in them luxury hotels free. They're being given money. Not just money for the hotel. They're being given spending money. They are giving them cash in hand while telling your kid, go get a scholarship. So this goes beyond just education. They are being given basically unearned reparations. Here's your money. We're cutting the check. We're cutting the check.
I'm going to do my best to fight it, and thank you so much for your time in this broadcast. Thank you, Jason. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much for giving us a call tonight. She's getting nervous. I want you all to understand, we cannot sit here and become singular in our thinking. That might be an issue that you're concerned about, but you've got to see the wider picture. They cutting the check. They're cutting the check. They are giving cash money. They're giving cash money. So that's a hard thing to have to get over when somebody, wait a minute, they're not handing out scholarships, they hand out checks. We want to make sure, just in case you end up in a place that we can't help you, just in case you end up in a place or a situation where we can't help you, we want to make sure that you got income coming in. That's my point. You got income coming in. You got black folk talking about reparations we haven't received. Black folk getting kicked out of houses and evicted all over New York. But they're bringing in the illegals and saying, we cutting the check. Come to us so you can get cash money in hand. Totally different experience from us. Totally different. Call America code 803. You're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Hello, my name is Leroy Livingston. I'm calling from Greensboro, North Carolina.
All right, Leroy from Greensboro. What's on your mind?
I have to say, this is I hope it was all worth it to all the people who voted for Joe Biden, knowing that he's a monster, knowing that he's trash. And then don't get me started on that harlot, i.e. Kamala Harris, and all those cheerleaders. And I honestly believe that, just like I said earlier, I guess before, that we don't need to be focused on these HBCUs. We don't. We need to be focused on getting these, like you said, get these hardcore skills, because it's looking grimmer and grimmer each and every time I look at the news. It's like we saw a bank literally close. All those millions and billions gone. And just like what we're going to see in 2024, about they're going to want to get us to vote in again, we're going to say, what about that reparations? Because I saw $100 billion go to a country that no one cares about. And then I want to get your opinion on something, Professor Jason, is that I want to ask, what do you think about ballot initiatives? Because I'm hearing more and more about that we don't need to be focused on the whole national stuff. Like ballot initiatives is a way that a community or a state can make laws by themselves that succeed federal law. I'm thinking that we might need to look into that. What do you think?
Well, certainly where it applies, sure. I don't have anything against it. Here's my only issue. If you're going to discuss politics, you cannot discuss politics as a singular entity. If you're going to vote on something, then you're also going to have to determine what happens on the day after. And there's where things tend to get confused, because these other folks vote for things and they know what's going to happen on the day after. If we're going to have ballot initiatives, we also have to have a plan and agenda in place for what we do on the day after. Thank you very much for giving us a call. Let me get caller area code 562. You're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Hi, Jason. This is Angela calling from Long Beach, California.
Okay, Angela, take your phone off the speaker.
I appreciate. Okay, thank you. It's so hard to hear you.
Okay, yeah, thank you very much. Take your phone off. Take your phone off speaker, Angela. All right, what's on your mind?
Yes, sir. 86% of our electorate has been voting for the Democrats forever, since FDR. And it's my opinion that this is how we became bottom caste in this country. You see immigrants and white folks weaponizing their vote constantly, and this is why the immigrant vote is split.
We were a bottom caste before FDR. We've never, that's always been our condition. So we didn't become one after FDR. When did we ever not be that? Tell me that.
Well, I do know that our ancestors knew when to pivot from the Republicans to the Democrats to get civil rights.
Right. I got it. But my point is, when have we not been the bottom caste? So I'm just making that brief addendum there. Is voting for FDR didn't make us that. We were already there. So.
Yes, but I would venture to say that when it was black and white and our ancestors knew when to pivot without the advent of social media, without being able to talk one to another. What I keep hearing that's stronger than my Freedmen protest voter strategy for closed border candidates is to withhold the vote for reparations and tangibles. And I would venture to say we will never get reparations from the Democrats until we bring them to their knees for several election cycles. But we've got to survive to get the checks cut. We've got to make it so the Democrats, will actually be begging us to cut the check. So when you look at Trump, he's rolled out a whole plan to get rid of this whole lot. And out here in California, our unemployment was 5% when he was in control of the country, in control of the borders. It's over 20% now. We have just been annihilated out here in California, as you often speak about. And I'm saying it's because we refuse to weaponize our vote for closed border candidates, which is a tangible.
Well, certainly.
I wanted to hear your thoughts about that.
Well, certainly, I think that's changing now. That's not something that's static. That's something that's been changing, as evidenced by the fact that the Democrats are in such a panic mode right now, as evidenced by the fact they've kicked into overdrive trying to say, hey, take a look at these symbolic gestures, as evidenced by the fact that the Democrats are starting to complain, talking about there's black folk talking like Republicans now. So as evidenced by all that, just let's be clear. You are never, if you're looking for the national media to put up a headline conceding defeat, I've been saying this for over a decade now, that's not going to occur. You're going to have to look at the tangible facts on the ground. You're going to have to look at the data. You're going to have to look at the outcomes, and then you're going to have to start coming to a plausible conclusion. But what you cannot do is take a look at the media and say, well, don't worry, we'll see if they call it correctly. So we've been making progress. The fact that reparations is now officially on the agenda in California and in other places now it's coming online, that's making progress. And this is an incredibly short amount of time for even that to be done. And now you're starting to hear people start to echo more of what I've been saying about reparations across the board, which is not just looking at government. You're looking at companies now and saying, hey, by the way, they got to start paying theirs too. So that's the coalescing of an agenda. So I would say that based on what we've seen, and when I'm talking about my program tonight, they wouldn't be desperate and in disarray if it wasn't changing. They wouldn't be desperate and in disarray if that wasn't the point. Roland Martin screaming and screeching. Remember when Roland got on the Breakfast Club here a couple months ago, what did he get on there and say? I played it on my program. He was complaining that black folk weren't supporting the Haitians down in Del Rio, Texas. I told y'all about them illegals, and y'all were talking about them people on the line, that new black media, talking about being against illegals, and I told you it wasn't just Latinos. So Roland was full court press, panicking and complaining. Don't believe me. Don't believe Jason Black. This wasn't Jason Black saying it. This was Roland Martin on The Breakfast Club saying it, and then coming back on his program on YouTube saying it. So this isn't me saying, well, if you think about it a certain way, it kind of turned out the way. This was Roland's exact words. Hey, y'all need to be supporting these illegals because it ain't just Latinos, and y'all aren't supporting them. So if things haven't changed, why would Roland be saying things like that? Specifically because the Democrats have flown him a kite and they said, hey, ain't you supposed to be able to get them niggas on board? And they're not on board and the elections are in trouble now and Trump's circling back around and this, that, and the other. And by the way, one other thing, I don't look to candidates. So Donald Trump has never been a friend of black folk like that. But then again, we don't need any friends. We just need people who support our agenda. And as long as they do that, that's the important thing. Donald Trump has neither endorsed nor backed a pro-black agenda. He has not done that. Now, could that change? Sure, it could. Certainly, border policy is something we can agree with him on. Absolutely. But you make it very difficult to agree on a border policy. And then if you're going to turn right around and say, and we're going to weaponize the police. Now this is the way in which these political parties psychologically play you against yourself. They propose one thing that you absolutely agree with, and then on the other hand, the same party will endorse another position that is absolutely anathema to you. So it makes it this weird juxtaposition to be in, because you can't serve two masters. Now, when they talk to Asians, they don't do that. When they talk to LGBT, they don't do that. When they talk to Arabs, they don't do that. When they talk to black folk, it's always, well, we got something that you agree with on this hand. Okay, that's good. And here's something where we're going to bust your ass over the head on the other. Then it's like, ooh, hell. Because if I vote for you, I'm not just voting for the good. I'm voting for this other thing over here. There's where we run into issues. Thank you very much for giving us a call. Let me get caller America code 504. You're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where you calling from?
This is G from New Orleans, Jason.
G from New Orleans. What's on your mind?
All right, good evening. Great broadcast, by the way, brother. I got a comment and a question. I'll start with my question. Do you think what's going on, since you mentioned Trump, this thing that's going on in New York where they're trying to indict him, do you believe that's a political ploy to keep him from running in 2024?
Yeah, well, they've been trying to indict the man since he left office. And so far, hell, they were trying to indict him before he left office. So far, nothing, because that's not the way it works. If indicting a president were that easy, presidents would be in jail or indicted every single time they get there. So by definition and by intent, it is difficult and damn near impossible to do so. Because let's be clear, once you lay out a roadmap for getting Trump, you have also simultaneously laid out a roadmap to get Biden, Obama, or anybody else. So, and by the way, I posted this on Twitter. Let me go ahead and get that up for you all here so you can see this. I posted this on Twitter because I found this to be very interesting. Let me go ahead and get this up for you here. Because just when you think that these folks are all different and you're voting for something different and you're voting for something unique, that's when they turn around and show you what they really own. If you all will turn your eyes to your screens right now on YouTube, you can see what I posted here from Twitter, and this is from the New York Times. Breaking news: the Pentagon is blocking the U.S. from sharing information, sharing evidence on Russian atrocities in Ukraine with the International Criminal Court, officials said. Military leaders fear setting a precedent that might pave the way to prosecute Americans. By Americans, they mean George W. Bush and his illegal war in Afghanistan and certainly in Iraq. They're talking about that. They're talking about grabbing Dick Cheney for torturing people in Guantanamo, which continues to this day. So, by the way, this story right here buzzed by Biden's White House. Defense Secretary Austin, this is Joe Biden running interference for George W. Bush. So you all with Kamala Harris, oh, they're committing war crimes in the Ukraine. Yeah, she's saying that in a speech, but when it comes to actually enforcing policy and putting teeth behind it, the Biden administration is literally saying that we're not going to share evidence with the International Criminal Court. We're not going to share evidence with them over what the Russians are doing, because while we do think they are atrocities, we're afraid that what we do is the same thing that Russia does. So we want you to penalize Russia, but not us. And this is a so-called Democrat president running interference for things that happened under a Republican president. Oh, wait a minute. But then again, who took over after George W. Bush? Oh, yeah, Barack Obama. And who did 3 times as much bombing as George W. Bush? Barack Obama.
Barack Obama.
Well, and who was his vice president? I'll be damned. So you see the age-old adage that government is not an organism that protects the people. Government is an organism that protects itself. So while they're telling you they need hundreds of millions of dollars to send to the Ukraine to fight them mean old Russians who are committing war crimes and atrocities, they're telling the international court, we ain't gonna give you evidence against the Russians because you might use it against us. Well, how could we use it against you unless you're doing the same thing the Russians are? How is it a war crime for the Russians, but not for you? So they are openly saying, yeah, the International Criminal Court applies so long as we say it does.
Yeah. And these Democrats, bro, and I'll be very brief because I know you got other callers, but my comment is very simple. What you're saying and hitting the head is you're hitting the nail right on the head. These Democratic leaders, if you look at every city, I want everybody to pay attention. Every major city in the United States. I live in New Orleans. You look at Atlanta, you look at New York, Chicago, LA. They all have black Democratic leaders. And yet they lead the nations. You look at them in poverty, in homelessness. We have a homeless crisis here in New Orleans, in LA, where Maxine Waters is a representative. They're on Skid Row. You know, she's not that far from Skid Row. I mean, and she has one of the poorest districts in the nation. And as many times as they keep getting elected, what happens? What changes? Not a damn thing. Eric Adams, like you were saying to the lady, he was part of the problem. He was a police officer. He supported stop and frisk. Now he's supporting illegal immigrants that's coming in and giving them all kinds of funds. Vote these people out. Recall their ass. I want you all to also be aware of something here. There's a reason why we've always had an issue with political gerrymandering, how they set up these districts. These districts are set up by the political parties specifically for the purposes of avoiding exactly what you're talking about. It's not an accident or a fluke that it is so difficult to remove these people from office. Go take a look at their districts. Their districts are not really set up as a geographic shape.
Their districts are set up specifically along population lines and ethnic lines in many cases for the purposes of making them safe seats. When one political party is in power, they rewrite the district lines to keep that seat safe. When another party is in power, they redraw the district lines to keep that seat safe for them. So it's not accidental that happens. So when you take a look at a district like with Cory Booker, yeah, you got a large black population there, but you also have a lot of non-black folk there. You got a lot of non-black folk there. Same thing for Maxine Waters. Yeah, you got a lot of black folk in her district now, but you got a whole bunch of white Latinos there. I know, I've been there. So it can lead to a very confusing thing. Karen Bass is the new mayor of Los Angeles. Now, her blackness, as we've covered here before, is in question. But the bottom line is you take a look at her and take a look at how she won. Take a look at the constituencies there. Yeah, that's not accidental. That's engineered. That's not accidental. It's engineered. Now, what you're saying can happen. I do want you to know what you're saying can happen. But what I'm trying to tell you all is don't look from the top down, because we don't have enough power as a group to control these things from the top down. You got to control it from the soil up. Well, Jason, what does that mean? You got to control it by being on code. The votes of black people follow the code and the agenda of black people. If you are refusing or unable to alter that, nothing else will change. That's the problem. It's real easy to talk about ballot initiatives. I don't have anything against them. Let's make sure you've done your due diligence. It's real easy to talk about elections. I'm not against them. Let's make sure you've done your due diligence. It's hard to do what I do. Now, this is the part that makes or breaks candidates. It's hard to do this. It's hard to have your facts lined up and not just be some bumbling, mumbling gerbil sitting in front of a microphone, messing up your facts and figures every damn week and being incompetent. This is hard to have people call in week after week, month after month, year after year, decade after decade, and you're setting the record straight to host a forum where this happens during non-election years. There's a reason why people come to us in mass numbers when the police have done gunned somebody down, because folks know where to come when there's not an election being held. But it's hard to do that. When people are mocking you and talking about y'all on that pro-black stuff, they don't say it nearly as much as they do now, but it's hard to get people engaged and galvanized during non-election times. It's easy to get their interest when there's an election coming up. It's hard to do this work every week of saying, hey, we gonna talk today because it's Sunday. Where's the election? That's next year. We're gonna talk today because it's Sunday. We're gonna talk today because it's Saturday. We're gonna talk today because it's Tuesday, because it's the 4th of July. I'm very glad you're off work. I'll be broadcasting tonight. We're gonna talk because it's Wednesday. We're gonna talk about this now. Yeah, Biden's in office, Trump's in office. It doesn't matter who the hell's in office. We need to come together with each other and get on code because it's Wednesday, because it's Saturday. See, that's called having an agenda. People who go to church got an agenda. People who go to synagogue got an agenda. People who go to the mosque got an agenda. They don't go to the mosque after there's been a killing or a shooting or an election or a candidate. They go because it's Sunday or Saturday, depending on your religion. And we got to do that. And when they go there and renew and recertify the agenda. That's not glamorous work. That ain't glamorous. It's not glamorous to get a bunch of folk together and to say, hey, we're going to talk about our issue because it's Sunday. Hey, I don't live in New York. I live in Shreveport, Louisiana. But let me tell y'all about what's happening up there in upstate New York. Hey, I don't live in California, but let me tell you what's happening out there in California where they're talking about letting illegals be police officers. Let us get together and discuss that in a non-election year. And so that becomes the part of an ongoing narrative and discussion. And when you finally do get to an election year, now the people have been recalibrated to look at the issue differently. But if you refuse to do the unglamorous work of holding these conversations week in and week out during non-election years, then when you get to the election, it's not that you don't have a response, but it's weaker than it could be. So I suggest to you that if you do want to change these things, and of course we do, you got to get everybody on code, but to get them on code means you and me and us and we. This has got to be the agenda everywhere. When the brothers roll up on Jimbo Jangles, you got to be able to have it straight. When, hey, you ain't backing reparations. I back HR 40. That's not reparations. That's a survey. When you going to give us what you giving the Ukrainians, the Afghans, the LGBT? When you going to just cut the check because you didn't make them go through a commission? See, that's when now we on code. Now that's when you got everything in place and you're on code. Because when you talk to Latinos, they'll dissect you. When you talk to Asians, they'll dissect it. When you talk to Indians, Arabs, they dissect it. We got to be on code like that. When you talk to Kamala Harris and you say, hey, we need a black agenda, we need economic empowerment, and she starts talking about the earned income tax credit, you got to, no, that's not economic empowerment. Economic empowerment is cut the check. You see, that's when you know the message has gotten through, when no matter where they go, they're running into this solid black brick wall that keeps responding the same way, that they can't turn on a camera anywhere without somebody there being able to say what we're saying. When we get to that point, that's when you're going to see the real major stuff that you're thinking about happen. That's when that's going to occur. Because that's when you'll know the message has gotten through. Right now, we've gotten to a point where people are no longer discussing integration and religion and politics as the answer. When they talk about politics, it comes back to what's the economics. We've made headway on that front. Now we got to take it to the next step. Now that you know that the issue is economics, we have to be uncompromising about what that is. And every time somebody tries to throw us a trick bag, we smack it back. And everybody knows what the response to the trick bag language should be. Thank you very much for giving us a call tonight. This is not glamorous work. It's not glamorous to buy billboards and put Amber Geiger in jail in a non-election year. That's not glamorous. That was like, 2019? It's not glamorous to do that. Folks, don't sit up here and hold a parade for you. We're holding conversations every week. This is unglamorous work. Folks, there's not an election going on. They just had an election for mayor of Chicago, but that was it. There's nothing going on right now as far as political elections are concerned, but we still got to keep people engaged. This is the important work right here. But that's hard to do. You got so many distractions. You got your cell phone. You got tennis shoes. You got kids in school. You got your favorite TV show going on. You got politicians trying to hoodwink you and distract you. You got bills. So having a forum like this every week where it's my job and obligation to keep people engaged, that's not easy. That is not easy. And then you have outright fakers and frauds like Roland Martin, the Root, the Griot, with multi-millionaires, on paper billionaires, behind them for the express purposes of distracting you. Here comes an awards show. Here comes the Oscars or whatever else. This is all for the purposes of distracting you. So it's hard to keep people on code and on message. But if you can do it, that changes everything. It's not easy, but if you can do it, you start here. We're going to go ahead and wrap things up here tonight. If you are new here to the Black Channel, welcome to the haven of intelligent black thought. We do this every weekend. Click that red subscribe button. Click that yellow notification bell. Join us each and every time that we're here. If you haven't been to our website, blackchannelfilms.com, you want to go check out our groundbreaking, best-selling documentary work, 7 a.m. Gentrified Race War, all available on DVD and streaming. Go to blackchannelfilms.com. That is blackchannelfilms.com. I want to thank all of you for joining us here tonight live or recorded. Thank you to everyone who has contributed to support tonight's program on PayPal, Cash App, Super Chat. You know who you are. I know who you are. And thank you very much for your support. And this concludes tonight's broadcast of The Black Channel. I am your host, your brother, your humble servant, the Black Authority. And until next time, my brothers and my sisters from around the world, remember, black is the future, and the future is uncompromising.